Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining me on today's webinar. My name is Monica Chen, and today we are going to talk about the new legislation changes that affect every landlord and tenant and everything you need to know in this changing times, especially for a property investor. And we are going to talk about the key changes in tenancy law that affect you and practical strategies to deal with these changes. And I'm going to share two case studies to show you how you can reduce your risks and costs as a landlord and maximize your long-term return from your investment properties as well. Now, today's webinar will run for approximately 30 minutes. You're welcome to ask questions and answer my poll questions in the chat box. And the replay of this webinar will be available to you in your email inbox within 2 hours after this presentation, and you have 48 hours to access your replay. So let's begin. A brief introduction of who I am. My name is Monica Chen. I'm the Managing Director and owner of Uno Property Management. I'm also a property investor myself and a blogger. I have 8 properties in Auckland, and I started my investing career in 2006. I've been in property management for a long time, though, for 12 years, rebranded and established Uno Property Management in 2016. We have been growing year on year at 30% per year, and I have a very successful blog going within the industry, and we have managed over 2,500 tenancies in our time. So let's dive into the topic that we are here to talk about today. That is the key changes in tenancy law that you must be aware of and comply with. Let's begin with a quick quiz to see how much of these legislations are you aware of. Quiz number 1, you're welcome to complete the answer of this quiz in the chat area. When do landlord obligations and requirements for the new healthy home standards begin? Is it A, 1st of July 2019, or B, 1st of July 2020, or C, 1st of July 2021? Okay, that's the first quiz question. Number 2, how many unique statements outlining different sets of information are now required to be in all new or varied tenancy agreement? Is it A, 2, B, 3, or C, 4 unique statements? And number 3, let's say tenant X is renting a property at $500 per week and causes some damage through careless behavior that costs $4,000 to repair. The landlord has an insurance policy in place with an excess of $1,000. Now, how much of this repair cost will the tenant be liable for? Is it $4,000, $2,000, or $1,000? Last question. With the new RTA amendment bill, how many days notice does the landlord need to give to the tenant if they want to reoccupy the property? Is it 90 days notice, 63, or 42 days? All right, I will review the answers to these 4 questions throughout the presentation and at the end as well. Thank you for participating. Now, there are 3 parts to these key changes that you should be aware of. Part 1 is the healthy home standards. I'm sure you have heard all about it, but today I'm just going to give you a summary of what those things are and what you should be doing, and the time frame that every landlord should be complied with. Part 2 is what now goes into a tenancy agreement, because that's often the trigger for tribunal cases and fines. Part 3 is the RTA amendment bill. Most of the bill will come into law in February 2021, but there are one particular provision that's already taking effect as we speak, so I will tell you what that is. Let's start with part 1, healthy home standards, HHS. There are 5 areas that falls into healthy home standards. Often you have heard about people talking about 1 or 2 of them in particular. That is the heating and insulation. Now, insulation first. All rental properties must have ceiling and underfloor insulation installed already. So um, that's from 1st of July 2019. The heating, basically the long and short of it, there's a mathematical formula to teach you how to calculate what heating capacity that you require. But basically, in most cases that we have seen, and we have seen a lot, most of them will just require heat pumps. And very high heating capacity heat pumps as well. You should be able to heat your main living room to maintain a minimum 18 degrees on the coldest day. We've seen some really funny situations where a living room that's really open plan that requires 2 heat pumps in one space. That's just ridiculous. However, that is the law. Ventilation, basically you have to have openable windows in the living room, dining room, kitchen and bedrooms. Kitchens and bathrooms must have extractor fans that vent the air outside of the property. So you can't have a device that looks like a range hood but actually doesn't work. And trust me, there are a lot of them out there. A moisture barrier is basically you have to have effective drainage for the removal of stormwater, surface water, and groundwater. And all rental properties must have an enclosed subfloor space that they must have ground moisture barrier. Okay, so for approximately for an area that covers 100 square meters, the cost is anywhere between $800 to $1,000. So that's the cost that we have seen coming into quotations for moisture barrier. So that's healthy homes. Let me show you a quick timeline for healthy home compliance. So from 1st of July last year, installation will be done. And from then till now, landlords must sign a statement of intent to comply with healthy homes or not in all tenancy agreements. So it is okay for you to say, I'm not going to comply with healthy homes because, you know, some of the properties may be redeveloped or teared down, but you have to actually have a reason. But for now, in most cases, you say, yes, I will comply, or I have the intention to comply. And 2 months from now, 1st of December 2020, landlord must include a statement of their current level of compliance with HHS in all new and varied tenancy agreement. I want to make a point that not only a new tenancy agreement will need to have these compliance documents, but also all varied tenancy agreement as well. So for a lease renewal tenancy agreement, lease renewal document, you actually have to have the statement. Now, if you want to have a look at the website, the government website, the compliance document it requires is about 13 pages. So it is actually a lot of information that you need from your healthy home report if you use the right supplier. But we have seen companies, assessors that giving us 2 or 3 pages of information that's just not going to be sufficient to meet the minimum requirement that the government require. Okay, so that I just want to make a separate point there. From 1st of July 2021, that's we're talking about 8 months from now. All properties have to comply with healthy home standards within 90 days of any new or varied tenancy. End of story. So for most private landlords and property management companies, that's the time frame that we're working towards. It's the law. And the recent news that we have heard this morning is that the government is going to spend a lot of money into the tenancy services to ensure the compliance of healthy home standards. So that includes human resources to do audit and to check on people and to make sure everybody does the right thing. Otherwise, there will be consequences. So I'm going to share with you a sample report. This is a report that we did for a genuine property that we managed, but this one was dated March 2020, and it's one of the very few reports that came back with a flying pass. Every single area within the 5 requirements are actually green as in pass. But in most cases, 97% of the reports, one way or another, one thing or another, they will come back with some fail. The report, anything that's red is fail. Okay, so you see the downpipe here with water discharging right to the ground. That's a definite fail. That needs to be going to somewhere that's not the ground. Okay, and the other area that we see fail a lot is ventilation. Okay, so see where this photo here, that's okay, and the photo above it, that is not okay. In most cases, this is an example of a quotation that we received from the assessor, included in which is a 9.7 kilowatt capacity heat pump. That is $2,730, okay? And all the other bits and pieces add up. Most cases, we see quotations come back anywhere between $3,000 to $8,000. But depending on the type of property, in some cases, if the property is really old, like a character villa and things like that, it can be quite costly to deal with things like draft stopping. So today, if you want to scan this code, you will receive automatically, just putting your details there, you will receive a 4-page document summarizing what you need to do for healthy homes. So I will run the QR code again at the end of the presentation, but you are more than welcome to scan this code and put in your information, and you will receive that straight away. So part 2, what now goes into a tenancy agreement? I think this is highly relevant to every single property manager and landlord out there if you're managing the property right now yourself. There are 4 things that goes into a property tenancy agreement, including a fixed term renewal document, okay? So insurance statement, installation statement, healthy home statement, and smoke alarm statement. So healthy home, for any tenancy that you sign between now till 30th of November, it's a statement, a simple sentence of statement of intent. Yes, I will comply with healthy home, or no, I won't. But as I mentioned earlier, from 1st of December, that you need to complete a 13-page document to say describe the current level of compliance for your property. So I'm going to share what they look like. So first of all, insurance statement from August last year, landlords are to disclose whether or not the property is insured in a statement as part of your tenancy document, and if so, what the access of any relevant policies are. Okay, so these are only relevant for careless damage that tenant has caused for your property. And tenants are only liable for up to 4 weeks rent or the insurance excess, whichever is lower. So in the quiz question, the answer is $1,000, which is the lower of 4 weeks rent or the insurance excess. So you have to make all of these documents available if the tenant requests to see it. So that's another thing a lot of landlords get confused about. And this doesn't actually apply to intentional damage, but it's really hard to prove in certain cases whether the damage was done intentionally or carelessly. I'll give you a sample healthy home declaration statement. It's this bit here. I/we own a property, that's the agent landlord, will comply with the healthy home standards as required by Section 45(1)(bb) of the Residential Tenancy Act, signature and date. So if you are privately managing the property, you will need to do the same. But again, from 1st of December, it's a whole set of documents you have to complete other than just one simple statement. Installation statement, we should all be very familiar with. Ceiling, coverage of the installation type, and minimum, whether it meets minimum criteria. Basically, it should be yes. R value, these are all should be part of your report that you receive from your installation company or healthy home assessor. Underfloor installation will be the same. Wall installation is not required. Okay, here are some other statement samples. Here is the insurance statement, name of policyholder, insurer, who is the insurer, and the access amount. Okay, so these are legally required to go into all tenancy agreement now. Smoke alarm, we have heard so much about it since 2016, but here we got a whole bunch of declarations on, I declare there's at least one working smoke alarm in each bedroom or within 3 meters of each bedroom door, and blah, blah, blah. You have all of these clauses in the government website, but you actually have to know your situation actually fits this declaration. Otherwise, it will be fraud. Okay, sorry. What's happening here? All right. So let's talk about part 3 of the changes, is the RTA amendment bill. There's only one provision that's in effect now. That's the minimum period between rent increases is now increased from 6 months to 12 months. So if you have increased rent on your tenant, say last month, in the past, in theory, you can increase it again in 6 months' time plus notice period. But the new legislation basically say that you cannot increase someone's rent more often than 12 months. Okay, so that's already in the legislation as we speak now. But most of the rest of them will come into law in February 2021. For example, landlords will not be able to end a periodic tenancy without reason. So you have to have a reason. You have to prove that your reasons are real and valid. Landlords cannot force a tenancy to be a fixed term. So if the parties don't agree, it will be automatically rolling into a periodic tenancy rather than another fixed term, which in the past is something that would have happened. Victims of family violence can end a tenancy within 2 days of notice. Okay, that's obviously you need to provide evidence of family violence, and such as police report and so on and so forth. Tenant can give 28 days notice to vacate rather than 21 days in the past, and tenants can make minor fitting and attachment to property provided they are able to be removed without any damage at the end of the property. Now, I have run a separate webinar for 40 minutes or so on this topic alone, and I will run the webinar again. I think this is very, very relevant. These lot of changes literally shift the power from property investors or landlords to tenants by miles. So I think it deserves a further webinar or discussion that everybody in the industry should be educated on. So today I just gave you a helicopter summary. So here are the summary. 1, insulation and smoke alarm. You must comply with these now if you have a rental property, investment property. Healthy home, for now, you just need to declare your intention, but in 2 months' time, you have to actually know the current level of compliance for your property. 3, you have to include 4 things in your tenancy agreement: smoke alarm statement, insulation statement, healthy home declaration or compliance details from 1st of December, insurance details in all of your new tenancy agreement, as well as fixed term renewal documents. Okay, so I think this will be a very important point for especially private landlord to take away today, is what goes into a tenancy agreement. Otherwise, your tenancy agreement will not even be valid. And also, there are some key things you have to understand about RTA amendment bill. And one thing in particular is you cannot increase your rent on your tenants if you have done so within the last 12 months. Okay, so what's the time? It's 20 minutes past. I will use the next 7 or 8 minutes to give you some real life example that we have encountered for you to understand the type of issues you can come up with. We can help you to fix. We discovered one of our properties was used as a Airbnb. This is when Airbnb was still a thing, obviously not this year. So we came across different contact person every time we tried to access for inspections. And then we found online listings, not even on Airbnb, but from other portals, to prove that they have been renting out the property on short-term basis and make a profit. We sent a 14-day notice. On top of it, we actually find precedent tenancy tribunal cases to help us prove the case. And the result is we actually got awarded, the landlord got awarded $9,000 as a compensation. So without disclosing the private details, here is a tenancy tribunal order that we managed. See, the landlord was given $5,780 plus $2,976 as their share of the profit from subletting the property. The tenant was really angry, but it was a very good example to show everybody what we can do to help landlord. Case study number 2, touch-up versus do-up. As you know, we've been receiving a lot of healthy home assessment report. This quote for this property came back at $5,500, excluding the heat pump. Heat pump was about $3,000. And then current rent was only $650. The landlord decided to upgrade, do some major upgrade on the kitchen and minor renovation for the bathroom. And including in that is to make sure the healthy home compliance was taken care of at the same time. The whole thing cost about $18,000, but then now the rent is increased by $100 from $650 to $750 per week. And now the property is fully compliant with healthy homes. I thought that's a very good story. So a summary of who we are, some information about us. We established in 2009 and rebranded and relocated in 2016. We manage properties all over, a team of 10 and growing rapidly. We have a true owner portal that you can access your information 24/7, including invoices and inspection report. We have dedicated letting agents that are working around the clock, including Saturdays. We rented out 19 properties during the level 4 lockdown this year using Facebook Live and video tour. We rented out another 15 properties in level 3, the last level 3. NPS score, which is a customer score, we have one of the highest in the industry, and our Google rating is 4.8. I think it's dropped a little bit, 4.7 as we checked this morning. Vacancy rate is 1%, sorry. Current rent arrears is slightly elevated due to COVID, but it's still under 3%. So the quiz question, when do landlord obligations come in for healthy homes? Actually came in 3rd of July, 2019. Question 2, how many unique statements are there outlining different that you need to put in your tenancy agreement? There are 4. All right. And with the new RTA Amendment Act, how many days notice does the landlord need to give tenant to terminate their tenancy if he or she wants to reoccupy the property? The answer is 63 days. 3, tenant access renting a property, blah, blah, blah. I reviewed the answer, that's 1,000. Okay, so for anyone that attended the webinar today, you can scan this code and receive a free ebook. And my next webinar will be on the RTA Amendment Act. That's really, I think it's very important for everyone to understand. Meanwhile, I can now ask questions in the chat box. If you have any questions regarding what I talked about, please ask away. We still have time. It's 2. Thank you for your time today. Just a reminder, the replay of this webinar will be emailed to you within the next 2 hours, and you have 48 hours to play the replay. Email me if you have any more questions or contact me. My email address is monica@unoproperty.co.nz. So I'll also run a separate webinar for next time. It's scheduled probably for another month. So in the middle of November, I'll be running another webinar, and you're welcome to register. Otherwise, I see there's no question coming, apart from one person commenting, oh my God. All right, I will be signing off now, and we'll be emailing you the replay of this webinar. Thank you once again for joining us today. Hopefully you have learned something and it's not a waste of time. I'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Ooh, sign off.